All right, we are live. Today is Thursday, October 29th, and this is our fortnightly community outreach meeting. And this week I thought we would talk about all of the great stuff that people in our community have been doing and maybe better ways we can help facilitate that work. So this is gonna be kind of free form. I'm gonna encourage everyone to speak up when you have something you want to add. But I just wanted to start by thanking BW Panda for all of his continued work on all of the backdrop websites. I know he's been going through the issue queue and commenting on old things and bringing things back up. He did a bunch of work on the API site earlier this month, and I think that our general tools for managing things have gotten much better, like the module sorting stuff he fixed on the main site. And I find that really exciting to have, most of these sites get kind of ignored most of the time. And I think that's really great. We're also, last week before our weekly meetings, we had a discussion on documentation, and it looks like we're interested in improving our documentation for everything, developer documentation, front-end site building documentation, getting other people to write documentation. And a lot of that stuff is going to happen on our main websites too. So yeah, I'm grateful for everybody who's working on that. In terms of outreach, I think having better documentation is good, but that will help the people who already know about us. And I would love to find more ways to reach out to people who don't already know about us. And this is something that, like, as a Drupal community, we were really bad at. I remember trying to run Badcamp events and being like, how do we invite people who don't know about Drupal to come? But if we don't know them, we don't know how to reach them. Same thing for DrupalCon San Francisco. And it was something that, as a handful of Drupal developers, nobody in the room really knew how to fix that, except for maybe Luke. I think Luke had ideas. No one else had any ideas. And so I think we're now facing the same thing in Backdrop, or like we've got a bunch of people who know Drupal and Backdrop, and we don't really know where do WordPress developers hang out? And like, where are people who are doing more than WordPress can do and want the next tool? Where are they looking? So yeah, I would love to hear all of your feedback on various other places that Backdrop might be able to put itself to be visible to those kinds of people.
So quick clarification. You said, I thought you started out by saying we wanted to focus on things we were already doing. And this sounds like you're like asking us to open it up and just throw a new one.
Well, so I do think we should focus on things we're already doing, but I ran out of those things to talk about. So then I switched gears to like, how can we tell people we're doing the things?
Sure.
So.
Okay. Well, something that has come up recently is these one-click installers, which is a long-time issue we've had. And that's a place where people are looking for software, right? And they don't necessarily know about us if we're in them. And I think that Domain Good, is that his name, screen name, had said he'd followed up recently with Softalicious or something like that. Softaculous. Anyways, and we have a long-standing issue and have done work in the past. I don't even know like how up to date that information is, though, like which one-click installers we're in, but that would certainly be it seems to me like the lowest cost, although also something that we have little control over other than bugging people.
Yeah. So I also spent a while, I don't know, it was a year or more ago, going through all of the one-click installers we had and checking out the status of Backdrop. Mm-hmm. And most of them didn't have Backdrop yet and didn't have any way to request anything other than sort of like emailing a contact form. Like, there isn't an issue queue, nothing's open source where we can like provide a pull request. And the places that did have Backdrop had really old, out-of-date versions of it. And they also were not open to like having us provide an update every time we made an update. And so I think it's a little bit just many of these tools are motivated by numbers and dollars. And as an open source community that is rather small, like we don't have either of those things to give them. Yeah. And so with one of them, they were like, oh yeah, we have it in an internal issue. And when we get enough requests, we'll add it. And so that, and I don't know if that was Softiculous or one of the other ones, but I think then it's just a matter of like getting enough people to fill out that contact form and send it into the void. And that would be the way we would get on there.
How about, which one is it? Is it Platform Estates or Pantheon that they have like WordPress and the 2 flavors of Drupal, but they don't have the list as? I remember that we poked them like a few years ago. Is their stance still the same? Like they still won't add us to the main list?
Yeah. So I talked to them earlier this year at some point, April or something. And what's on that list is entirely driven by marketing team. And so they need to see a return on investment on that page if they put you on that page. So they used to have a lot of options on there, including like Drupal Commerce and Open Atrium, and they removed everything. And I think at that point, like that was really early on, and that was right when Backdrop got added. And we're like, oh, we want to be on this page. And then it was like a month later, they pulled everything else. And so I think that page only having Drupal 7, Drupal 8, and WordPress is like important to the marketing team for some reason. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think actually along that line, Pantheon, which doesn't advertise us, but supports us very well. I think is one of the best sort of like market validating things that we have. There's a few of those, and I was writing. I'll do a little spiel now because I think our best outreach is piggybacking on these other projects. So number one, most obvious is Civi CRM, which actually advertises us. Like if you go to the Civi CRM site, alone among almost anything, it will say, how about Backdrop? So, I mean, I think that's fantastic. So I mean, we've talked about this before, but I think it's that is a very ripe fruit to pick. To just continue with that metaphor. We should make sure that experience flows well. And I mean, there's a limited amount of work that we can, there's always the question of how we can do it, but we shouldn't do anything to slow it down, and should encourage it and water it in whatever easy ways we can. Similarly, and kind of uniquely, the packaged Docker things, not just our buddies at Lando, but DDEV and Doxel also. if you fire them up and say start a new site, one of like the short list of like 6 or 7 menu items is Backdrop.
Yeah.
So I would think we're getting or could get, or I mean that seems like a surprising amount of push for us. Now we don't have any way, I don't think, to tell if that works. And I mean, I doubt if very many people actually click on that without knowing what it is. But that it feels like we should feed that we should encourage that like those kind of 4 ways to try. And we have the Pantheon on the front page. We do push that. But so those things. And if we can find anything else, and anybody else that is willing to bundle it with it as part of the platform that they approach it with.
I kind of find those places like expected if we're listed there, as in someone tries to fire it up and like they're trying to ease the life of their users. What I find really cool is the drustcommands.com, which actually has us like in a very prominent place. So this is the place where people just go to see, and maybe, look, you haven't seen that, so I'll add it to the chat as a link. Yeah, so, and there was no reason for them to have us there. Like, they are not selling a service or like any software. They're just, I guess, friends of ours. And they actually explain things. Like, they start by saying, if you look at the link, it says, is migrating to Drupal 8 to complex for you? Then have you tried Backdrop yet? So that's awesome. It's really awesome. But with regards to Pantheon, have they ever see how we approached Tugboat for our sandboxes, and they said that they would like to have a discussion with us with regards to return of investment on their end. with Pantheon, have they asked for such a discussion, or did they say what it would take? No, they just said no.
Yeah, they keep talking about numbers, and they're looking at their platform going, the number of paying backdrop sites compared to the number of paying any other sites isn't worth investing in.
Yes.
Which is funny, because if they invested in it, the numbers would be higher. So it's also a chicken and egg thing. But I do think that they have a point. Like, you look at the size of the backdrop community and the size.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know. I would like to see at Drupal 7 end of life them just switch that to backdrop instead.
We want to be in a position to be there at that time. So I noticed that this Drush commands link is terrific. It'd be nice ideally to have that go to a landing page where we're like, hey, welcome. Here's what you need to know. Just so they feel loved and acknowledged and can be guided down. The logs probably can tell us how much traffic we get from there, right? I've never looked at that stuff, but I'd be curious if it's significant, if there's enough to build on. But yeah, no, that's like that. That's awesome, right? Anything like that we can get is pure gold.
A small complaint, by the way. I wasn't sure, so I just checked now our try backdrop page. So we are doing we're doing the good thing, the nice thing here with regards to Pantheon. Sorry, our try backdrop page lists them first of all the options, and although I would have to say that Tugboat are the more friendly to us, like they're providing us services for free.
That's why they're on the homepage.
We list them at the last because I know there's some, like, there's some categories there. There's the ephemeral services and the ones that you can spin up backdrop sites and potentially keep them forever and promote them to actual sites. But yeah, just a small complaint. It kind of feels unfair.
Yeah, I mean, the reason, so that's like a user experience thing, right? Like, if you don't want Tugboat, putting it the first thing on the page is going to make people, they're like, I clicked that link and it was exactly the same thing as I saw on the other page, leave. Right. So you don't want to give them the same thing they just said no to.
Yeah, I think we already have a ticket in the queue to sort of like make these accordions or have a table of contents on the side which says these are services that you can potentially keep the site forever, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I understand that.
I just added the field while you were talking.
Yeah, thanks.
I noticed actually that page lists Lando and DDEV.
Yes.
I'll double check, but I think Doxel also has it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
We should also list them there.
Yeah, when you said that, I went and checked this page immediately and was like, I didn't know Doxel did backdrop, probably because they're not on this page. But yeah, do we know anyone who works there that we can ask for information from, or should we just?
They're also using Gitter. So when we were using Gitter, I had see how Gitter allows you to have multiple communities on the sidebar. I had the Doxel community. And I think I've filed a pull request to update backdrop because we have an outdated version there. But yeah, the community is pretty open to supporting us. I mean, supporting backdrop as an option. But yeah.
And can you quickly send the link you're talking about? Is this the Pantheon site?
Nope, that's a tool that is equivalent to Lando and DDEV.
Okay.
It's on the try backdrop page.
Okay.
Oh, what is Doxel?
Try backdrop.
I'll get the link to it.
So just a process check. We're getting into the details about sort of each specific provider. It seems to me the more helpful thing is what is an overall strategy here. So, or to move on and talk about something else. But I think
before we move on,
overall strategy. If somebody wants to push customers our way, we should encourage them to do that.
Right.
Show them the love.
With regards to strategy, there was meant to be an installation of CV for our use. How much has that progressed? Because I remember that Luke and team. Nope, you're shaking your heads. maybe an update on that? Is it stalled? Is it canceled?
Just,
It's been stalled for a while.
yeah. But thanks to my gigantic new backdrop project, looking at the feature request list for the future, it looks like they're going to need Civi. So I might have to learn this.
So,
yeah.
Janet, this has been discussed as recently as a week or two ago. The problem has been that that apparently the current plan is that we want to connect Backdrop or Civi CRM to backdrop.org. And so it's not just about spinning up a new Civi instance, it's about connecting it to backdrop.org. And we can't do that until we've kind of tested it in a dev environment. And so, like, I've never spun up backdrop.org locally. And in order to test it, I have to first just get backdrop.org working locally. Then I've got to try. And I volunteered 2 weeks ago. I said, it's on my short list of things to do, but I'm really busy right now. So. But if anybody else can do, I'm by no means blocking anyone else from doing that. Yeah. But that's the blocker right now is getting it.
I've set up Civi under Backdrop just to see what it did, and it came up, and I can click around and poke around, but it's not much use out of the box. That next step was unclear to me.
That's not the blocker is connecting it to backdropcms.org.
Yeah,
you want to integrate it with backdropcms.org.
So we had a meeting with Jack and some folks at Palante at the beginning of the year in January, I think. And they have a lot of experience setting up Civi for all of their nonprofit clients. It's sort of a standard offering that they do. And they have experience adding Civi to existing sites. And they have experience knowing how to set it up out of the box. And especially, we had a meeting and talked about the kinds of things that we want to talk to our contacts about, like the kinds of contact we want to have with all the people in our database. And they said that they could help us create that experience and then release Civi to us where it's already set up with all of that information about all of our people in it. And that sounded amazing to me. But they are also very busy. And this is also at the bottom of their list because it is pre-donated work. And so we had arranged a sort of a work swap where I was like, I'll do free work for you if you do free work for Backdrop sort of thing. And the things that they had requested were stuff related to Civi, like views integration and what else. And so we're in a little bit of a pickle because they don't have time to do the work for us. I don't really have the time to do the work for them without having something to work on, but I don't have something to work on until something for us.
Speaking again.
Yeah. So I think at this point, like if any one of us can figure out how to just get Civi on our site, we can kick the can down the road for how to get it configured for what we need, because at any point we could probably tap them and say, hey, can you help us set this thing up? And I don't think, other than like accidentally deleting all of our data, which I don't think is going to happen, I don't think there's very much we can do wrong that's dangerous. I think there's only stuff we can do that we don't understand.
Yeah. Well, it builds a whole application separate. The only interface is just the menu items. It puts up another menu, and it has its own database tables. It doesn't mess with the existing tables at all.
The point, Luke, I think, is to pull in the existing data, right? Which we're not, like, we could just add it on to Backdrop. That's not the hard part. The hard part is getting it to work with our existing database. We've got 1,000 accounts on backdrop.org, and we need to figure out how to connect those to Civi, right, John?
Yeah, and list them as being, these are members on our website versus the people on our mailing list versus the people who've donated money. So just getting all of our current data in a way that.
And to be clear, I'm not saying we have to do that. I'm saying that's the current plan.
Yeah.
That doesn't even seem like.
The problem is that we could just like start with fresh and actually get somewhere, as opposed to letting this block us. But go ahead, Luke.
Look, I wouldn't mind seeing or helping put together what the actual stories are there. The way it's described now, it sounds like less of an integration than a data import, right? Like
no, it's got to be integrated so that every time somebody creates an account on backdropcms.org, they show up in our Civi database.
Yep.
It's both an integration
every day. Yeah. Okay. Or if they they could log into their Backdrop account and be like, remove me from your mailing list. Like there's got to be that.
I could be mistaken, but I'm under the impression that Laren is also like using. I'm not sure if he has any connection with Palande, or I don't think so. But yeah,
he did our session on Civi, so he knows Civi, but
yeah.
he hasn't stepped up to work on this.
So I also try to set up my backdrop cms.org locally about 3 weeks ago, and BW Panda has put up a script, a Lambda script that helps you with that, but I hit some roadblock, like something wasn't working. So I wanted to help with something totally different, but yeah, there was a roadblock. But yeah, it's possible, team, maybe we could coordinate after like in a separate session, not this meeting, and just get it done.
I went in too. Are we going to have a create local versions of org party?
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
But let's coordinate that in Zulip after the meeting. Let's find a time and do that.
Yep.
Done.
Yep.
I need to do that for the telemetry module anyways, to test that. So this will be a two for one for me.
Yeah. With regards to other ways to like or things that are happening in the community and recent blog posts, constant thing that is happening, and I mentioned it today, is that I watched this webinar from a private, like a digital agency that it was a marketing effort from what it seemed, but still it offered, it was discussing the various options for owners of D7 sites. And they were mentioning Backdrop, and they said that it's a valid option for people to choose, but they were discussing the pros and the cons of its option. And one of the cons for Backdrop was, well, if we want to put it nicely, we would say uncertainty, but they were mentioning it as a risk because we're a smaller community and so on and so forth. And this thing keeps coming up. Like previously, there were concerns about security. We were telling people, nope, we're coordinating with Drupal and so on and so forth. So we've done something about it. But, and this ties up to what you said, Tim, with regards to documentation. I know that you mentioned that it's for when people actually know who we are. But if people find out about us, they try to set up Backdrop and then they try to find documentation and they hit a roadblock, it's easier for them to give up. So documentation does tie into like the outreach, like as a side project, it's not a main thing, but that does tie. What are our ways to communicate to people about the longevity, or like when we do presentations, we say Backdrop is here to stay. We say that we have a history of 7 years now, 5 years of releases. Our releases have been on time and like steady. This is enough sort of like to prove the history, but people are worried about the future. So is the roadmap on our page enough? Do we need to set up a specific page or a blog post that explains that? So that, yeah, I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know that this like is necessarily a problem we can solve, because it's something that's like an impression that people get that isn't really based, like they don't have anything that needs to be disproven. Like with security, it was very clear, like, oh, we don't think you're doing stuff with Drupal. And it's like, we are. And they're like, oh, but here it's like, you know, the future is a mystery for Drupal too. And they're committing to that just because there's a lot of other people who are already in the boat. So I don't know. I like to often say, you know, when people are like, oh, I don't know, it's smaller than the Drupal community, what about the future? I was like, well, you know, there's more than 1,000 people in this boat, and that's more than a lot of other open source software communities have. And the number of people working on Drupal is shrinking. The number of people working on Backdrop is growing. And I don't know what that means for the long term for either one. Maybe they'll end up at the same place. But yeah, I don't know that we can.
Yeah. For example, when I Google with terms Backdrop CMS and Future, our roadmap comes up as a second result for me. And the first result is a mention, one of the external mentions, which says the future of Drupal. So what I was saying is that, do we perhaps need a dedicated page in our site explaining what our plans are? Because the roadmap thing is a bit vague and technical, I guess.
I don't think that's what that concern's about. I think it's purely about the size of our community and the perception of how stable it is. And we can't, the only thing we can do, I think, is one, just keep plugging along and growing and reinforcing an image of stability, right? So the more we sort of show up in Twitter and, in social media, the more people see us, the more they'll perceive us as something stable that's going to be around, right? And it is, I don't think our website alone is going to solve that, right? Or a roadmap is, anybody can sit down in a day and write a roadmap and make it really detailed, but that isn't, me as an outsider, I'm not going to give that any credibility.
There's one thing which I propose as initiative, and as soon as I get goddamn ready to wear launch, this might be the next one. But it's called the Built-in Data Import and Export Initiative. The idea being that I think we can make it clear that there are lifeboats available. That if the end does come, if the platform does die, like you're not going to get screwed. Here's how you get off it. and I mean, because people have to move platforms all the time anyway. So that's kind of a normal path of life. So I think we can mitigate those concerns by covering like the bad case, being like, look, the bad case actually isn't so bad, and the good case is great, and the present case is great. So go with it.
So this was the future and the jump, like the question of that came up during the Advomatic webinar that I attended was that if I decide to go to Backdrop, and then for now, and then sometime in the future, I'm ready to go to D9, is there a blocker there? And our general, so the answer there was that the way that you move from D7 to D9 is migration. So the tools that are being used are generic, and they support, there's nothing fundamentally changed in the data infrastructure, the way that data is being stored in Backdrop, that would prevent people that are using the tools to migrate D7 to D9 to do the same thing with Backdrop. So there's another thing that I don't think that we have any literature saying that in our site, so that it sort of takes that fear away from people. It's there as an answer. We have a dedicated thing for security, but we don't have anything for that. So yeah, I agree with that.
And we have a half-built module that does that too. I've coded up, it's on a back burner, but I've coded up a migrate module that actually migrates using. I just stole the Drupal 7 code and made the minor changes to make it Backdrop. And
back to what Tim said though, with regards to the size of the community, I see that we have a ribbon, a dedicated hero thingy on our homepage, which lists the amount of comments on our forum, I suspect, or is it at GitHub?
Those are GitHub, core, and contrib. I
think that we should also add the forum activity here. It says commits and community members, which is great, but how do we make that more prominent? Is that enough? Do people see that? I mean, or they do see it and they still consider that it's too small and they're concerned about the health of the project. I don't know, the answer to that.
But may I say something here? I didn't attend the meeting for quite some time, so maybe you discussed this in the past. But for me, the low-hanging fruit is Google, is search engine, is people searching for Drupal alternatives. To have the next 100 contributors, and then we can go every way we want in the strategy. But the next 100 contributors or users or site builders might be the easiest way to get them using Google.
Yes.
If they're entering a Backdrop, a Drupal alternative, or WordPress alternative, or Joomla alternative, we should be there somewhere.
Yeah. So we started something with the conservative. Is that right? You're taking the emails now, Jen, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we haven't started yet, but we did apply for a Google Ads grant, which is where Google gives free money to nonprofits. And that was sort of a complicated process that Laren started working on for us, where we have to create a page in another system that Google uses to confirm that you're a nonprofit. And they sort of have offloaded that verification process to another site. And we need to list ourselves as being part of the Software Freedom Conservancy, and the Software Freedom Conservancy did not already have an entity on this website. And so Laren has created one on behalf of the Software Freedom Conservancy, but it's really, they move really slow over there. And so trying to get them to like sign off on things and respond to emails has been a little bit painful. So we're sort of at that process where it's like, we've created the conservancy, but they have not approved the stuff they need to approve to get confirmed as a nonprofit, which in turn would then allow us to file for this grant. So essentially we haven't made any progress, though we are doing things to getting that grant.
But let's assume that they deny to support us. Let's assume this. Nevertheless, we could analyze. I'm pretty deep in this SEO thing. In the meantime, I would love to analyze a Search Console log file or whatever tool we use, and filter out 2 or 3 top expressions which indicate that people are desperately looking for an alternative to whatever. And then maybe create 1 or 2 pages or 3 pages of content. And this helps in a long term. I'm always surprised how quickly it goes in every kind of business. Right now, I'm working for a beauty consulting company. It's very much the same as the software company. How you come from search queries to result to content.
So then, just to get a better idea, is it that we cannot go directly to Google for the ad grant? We have to go because we're members of the SFC.
You're only eligible for the ad grant if you're a nonprofit, and the nonprofit that is Backdrop is the Conservancy. So the Conservancy has to go to Google, and we can do it on their behalf, but they still have to verify that they are a nonprofit through the service that does that.
Okay. Yes. So how close are we on that? Do we have any updates? No. Okay.
Not close. And this is just for ads too, though. I think like Matthias's like organic search angle is a good one, because we can still get on that page of search results without paying for it, if we can get our content right.
Okay. I have no experience with that. So Matthias, if you're able to help.
Yeah, sure. And we're making progress. I checked today. I checked Drupal alternative on Google, and we're making progress on a website called Alternative 2. We're number 5 compared to number 15 a few months ago.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Slowly but steady progress.
Matthias, do you use Zulip?
Yep.
Yeah, he's there.
Can you private message me your email address, and I'll add you to our Google Analytics and Webmaster Tools account at backdropcms.org and related properties.
Yep.
Thank you.
We're down to 5 minutes.
Oops.
Can I ask, I don't know if somebody else has something else. Otherwise, I have something that could be pretty quick, which is one of the things I'd like to do is check in every 2 weeks on the dashboard notifications. This is a kind of outreach, but it's to our existing community, and see if people have ideas for new ones. So currently, the 3 current notifications showing up are an announcement about the documentation last week. So I just unpublished that. So that'll go away. The next one is what new features would you like to see that post in the forum, and Backdrop CMS 1.17 has been released. We really need a new one. What should we be on the dashboard? Any ideas?
I don't know what's new. Like, is there any event that is upcoming?
We could, I don't know what's in our blog, but we could write some content and link to it.
Yep.
Because we got to write it first, but.
Okay. Well, we don't have to answer this, and we can just, when I unpublished one, the last oldest one will pop back up, and I'll have to see what that one is. I forget. But anyways, I can come up with something too. I wanted it, but an opportunity for somebody else. If they could think of something going on right now that might be good on the dashboard, let me know. I have been updating that every couple of weeks. So,
by the way, our events page is blank, but it says here's a list of events that you can, maybe in that case we can show past events, because it's just a page title and nothing.
There's a date for Backdrop Live in February or March.
Yes, we can put a tentative date.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So my vote is for March, because February is 15 days after our release. And if we did it in March, then it would be a month and 15 days. Seems like a more reasonable amount of time based on the last time. But if we do it in March, then we would also do it in July and November. And November is not a good time for an event. So.
Well, I don't think we have to hold rigidly to every.
That's because other Drupal events are happening in November. Is that it, or
holidays and traveling under normal circumstances?
So it would be a full, like, if we did it around the 15th, it would be a full 10 days before Thanksgiving. So.
Yeah, look, it's not the event is not a release. We could have it happening regularly, but it doesn't have to be an exact date, right? So we can move it a month or a few weeks.
I just wanted to throw that out to just so you guys know that we are running up against November, but I'm fine with doing it in November or moving it around as needed. Just
right.
Okay. Gregory or Tim, will one of you create those two events on the website for us?
So what should we use as a date for those?
So choose a Friday in the middle of March.
Okay, and you mentioned two events. Are you mentioning the following
Friday and then the one in July? Friday in the middle of July.
And what do we call them? Do we call them Backdrop Live? Do we keep? Yep. Okay. Cool.
Let's go with a third Friday for now, and that would be March 20th and July 17th.
Yeah, and mention that these dates are tentative, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
I can do that. I'm going to be updating stuff.
Okay. Cool. Thanks. That gives me time. I haven't, for 2-3 weeks, I haven't been active in the issue queue as well, and I miss it. I see all the issues that I haven't responded to, and it's starting to stress me. I want to get to that. What else? So that could go, one of them, the next one can go in the dashboard, as you said, so that we can get feedback from people. Like, is it a good time? Is it not? But what else? Do we have anything in the backlog for something to be written, Jen? Any ideas?
We do have Google Drive full of interviews of community spotlight stuff we should check on.
Doc Wilmot is saying that someone is adding comments in the YouTube stream. Let me check that. I wasn't checking it.
It is 3 o'clock too, time for our next meeting. So
is Ben. So they're concerned about payment modes for use in Africa specifically.
Let me check that.
Mobile money payment, because it's different and used more than banks. I'm also starting to work on financial transaction stuff for Backdrop, and I think right now we don't have a lot of solutions. We have Stripe and we have PayPal in various forms. But yeah, I think in general, we're missing a lot of those e-commerce pieces that, there's a million commerce modules that do it, but if we're not using commerce, we've got to get the alternatives moving over too.
Was there a dedicated module for that in Drupal?
I don't know about specifically Ghana friendly payment
Although
processors.
this would be a good time to mention that Jen, with some work she's doing for a client, and I have talked about collaborating a bit on some conference-related tools that we can also use for Backdrop Live. And one of, I think, the most important ones that we're interested in is like ticket purchasing, right? The ability to register for an event on the Backdrop site. And hopefully we'll get some contrib modules out for that. And then I've suggested that we at least experiment with a distribution sort of Backdrop events, if nothing else, as an excuse or a place to play with some of these contrib modules and experiment with them, but also to experiment with the idea of distributions for Backdrop, which I think has outreach implications. So, although I'm not sure it's the right way to go. So I welcome feedback on that.
And there's a contrib project called Backdrop_events with an issue queue where we're doing a lot of thinking about how to solve these things. So anyone who has experience building event websites and wants one for the future in Backdrop, please jump in. Yeah.
I can contribute the event registration module because Joseph helped me with migrating that from Drupal for a custom project.
That would be great.
Not released yet, but I'm very happy. I will use it again in the near future for signing up to events. I've done a lot of event solutions in the past, not on Drupal, but I know the use case a little bit.
That's great. Yeah, I was looking for, there's a Drupal module called registration. I think it's called entity registration. And I was thinking about porting that one. You already have something that would be fantastic.
It's that module.
Great.
Isn't it great when things have already happened?
Yeah.
Well, let's use this project, Backdrop_events, to talk about event tools. I mean, the idea is that we could build a distribution out of that, but even if we don't, let's just get some contrib modules going.
You're talking about the GitHub link?
Yes, GitHub. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
I'll put a link in Zulip right now.
Talking about GitHub, I haven't, like in case it wasn't felt already, for the last 3 months maybe or more, I haven't been doing a great job at keeping up with the contrib. Jen, I think that you've been jumping there. Just be aware that we need some more people to be more responsive. We used to be doing a better job for people doing applications for porting modules. So
yeah,
I hope we get back to that, but yeah.
I think in the next meeting, I'll solicit volunteers. And we'll just say it here too, what the responsibility would be is to keep an eye on the Backdrop ops/contrib issue queue, which is where people apply for applications to become a contributed maintainer or even just contribute stuff. And so the process to that is just basically making sure that they fulfill the 3 requirements on a new project, which is keeping the Git history from Drupal 7, including the license file and including the README file. And if they've done those three things, we just grant them permission. I sometimes also like to do a code review, but that is entirely optional. So don't feel obligated to do that.
Olaf has been doing a great job at pinging me when people are waiting for a day or two. So you don't have to directly help or be involved with that, but if you ping me in Zulip, which I always have open, that helps as well.
Okay, well, why don't we wrap up this meeting and I'll just hit the stop recording button and then we'll start the next one.